Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new series on Fundamental Fridays. This series we're going to go over how to illustrate black textures. It's really a matter of figuring out shades of black, just like you would figure out shades of red for illustrating a red texture, shades of blue for illustrating a blue texture. The only thing that makes it more difficult is the differences in the shades of black are so much more subtle than differences in shades of yellow or green, right? And yes, you can, and I do use dark grays as part of the shades of black, but you have to get really choosy about which dark grays you use because there's a line between charcoal gray and your darkest grays and light black. And you never want to cross that line. You want to stay firmly in the light black camp. And I'm going to show you more about that as I start pulling out my markers and showing you what these colors look like. But I want to preface all of that by saying I have deliberately overlit this video. Like you can tell, like there's so much light pouring all over my studio table right now. And I did that on purpose so that you can really see the differences in all the shades of black that I'm about to show you. Now, when you see these blacks in person, the differences are going to be more subtle and everything is going to be darker because this whole video is purposefully overexposed. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're shopping. It's like, oh, it didn't look like this in Zoe's video. It's like, no, everything is going to be darker. The differences are going to be more subtle. Right? But, you know, I was trying to accommodate all the different computer and phone and tablet screens out there that you guys are going to be watching this video on and really make sure that you guys can see the value and tone differences that I'm talking about. Now, I'm going to use these words a lot in this video series, value and tone. Okay? So value means the lightness or the darkness of a color. So when I say, look at all these values, it means look at how all these different colors, some are light and some are dark. Okay, you have all these lightnesses and darknesses of shades of black. And when I talk about tones, I mean undertones, okay? Just like any other color. I mean, you can have a green, and you can have greens that have blue undertones, more bluish greens, not so blue so they look turquoise, but you've seen them, right? Cool greens, bluish greens. And then you have greens that have yellow undertones, you know, warm greens, you know, not quite full chartreuse, but the warmer greens. And just like that, blacks also have different undertones that I'm going to talk about. You ever go marker shopping and you see how, you know, Copic has a warm gray, a natural gray, a cool gray. I think they have another one too. Like they have a bunch of different kinds of grays. Prismacolor has a warm gray, French gray, neutral gray, and cool gray that I can recall. So these all have these different gray undertones. And when we start hitting the black markers, the same is going to be true. The lighter the black is, the more of an undertone you're going to see. And then I'm going to show you some super black markers where there's no undertone. It's just black. Blackity black, black, black. So much black. Serious black. Wait, serious black. Isn't that a Harry Potter character? Anyway. So what I'm doing now is I'm laying down bars, test bars of the darkest grays I have in my marker kit. I have in the Prismacolor sets, I have a full set of warm grays and a full set of cool grays. So I made a bar for the warm gray. And in the Copics, I have Natural Gray 9 and I have a full cool gray series. And the Neopiko 2s is a marker set that I bought in Japan that I still haven't gone around to testing. Yeah, I'm always testing stuff, and you know, nobody is telling me what order I need to test things in. So I just test whatever looks exciting to me at that point in time. And these unfortunately have been kind of pushed to the side, but I pulled them out for this demo, and I pulled the darkest gray that was in the set. So that's their Cool Gray 8. And I don't know if they have, you know, a gray 9, 10, 11, whatever, but this is the darkest that was there. And when I look at it, the value of it is comparable to the warm gray 90. So I'm rolling with it. With the Copics, their darkest gray is the 10, but I don't have a natural gray 10. I have a cool gray 10, but look here. You can see as I'm laying down the color that the values of the natural gray 9 and the cool gray 10 are very similar. So I'm just rolling with it. I'm going to assume that if I had a natural gray 10, it would be slightly darker, and that might be even a little bit better. So I'm going to test out my blacks and grays on these main 4 bars, but I want to show you just a couple other really dark grays I have in my kit. This is the Prismacolor Cool Gray in 90. And I don't love this as a light black. It has such a cool undertone that it very much looks like charcoal gray to me. And so I'm not going to use it. The warm gray, because it's got that brownish purplish undertone, okay, it suits for warm light blacks. This is the Neopiko 2 Neutral Gray 7. And, you know, the value is a little bit lighter, but kind of like the Copic Natural 9 and the Cool 10, the difference is minimal. And you can see the undertone is definitely much more neutral. What I want you to pay attention to right now is how, you know, not all 90% grays from one brand are the same in value. And not all the gray 9s and the gray 10s from another brand are the same value. You have to really look at each individual marker and test it out on its own. Now let's get started with our black markers. First up is the Prismacolor Black PB98. And I'm going to layer it on top of the Prismacolor Warm Gray 90 because that's how I'm going to use it. Anytime I'm testing media, I try to test it as closely to how I'm going to use it in my final illustrations as much as possible. And when I illustrate, let's say, a black blouse, okay, I will have a light black base fabric color, and I will use a dark black to do my shadows. And so let's pretend I use the Prismacolor Warm Gray 90 as my light black, and then I would use my Prismacolor Black PB98 as my dark black, my shadow color, and I would layer the shadows on top of the base color. And so I'm going to test it by layering it on top. Prismacolor has a second black called Jet Black, which is their PB211. And it is darker and a slightly warmer tone than the PB98. And I'm going to layer it on top. You have a few options here. Because you have the 2 blacks, you could actually use the jet black as a second shadow. You know, if you watch my shading series, then you know that I like to have multiple values of shadow so that it looks more 3D, it has more depth and interest. So you could do that. You can use all 3 of these colors, these blacks, grays, to create different shadows, or you could just use the Prismacolor Black PB98 as your light black. Because out of all the markers labeled black in my marker kit, the Prismacolor PB98 is the lightest black. And so I often do use this as my light black. It, again, depends on the fabric that I want to render or whatever it is you want to render. You've been to the fabric store, you've seen black fabrics, and you know there are so many different values and tones of black fabrics. You know, when you look at black denim, it's much more faded looking because you see a bit of those white weft threads poking through. And, you know, black silks that have kind of a soft shine surface, those blacks tend to look much darker than black silks that have a matte surface like crepe. Crepe is not shiny, and so it looks more intense and dark and black, whereas charmeuse and satin, they have that glossy sheen on the surface and it looks lighter. So I'm showing you guys all these options so that you can match your fabric. Because sometimes it'll be black, but it'll look really close to the darkest gray you have in your kit. And sometimes it's so black that you have to use this light black as your base color instead. So here I have two Copic blacks. I have their black 100 and I have their special black 110. And their special black, I don't know why that's so funny to me. Special black, it's special. Their special black is a little bit darker than their regular black. Although I have found that the value difference is not as intense as the value difference between the two Prismacolor blacks, but there's still a distinct difference. So here I am layering the black 100 on top of the Copics that I have out here. And you can see the value difference between the grays and the blacks, light black, dark black. And here I am layering the special black 110 on top. And now you are seeing this family of black colors. Now I'm layering the brands together right now just for organization's sake, but people who watch my channel know that I mix and combine and overlap brands in the same illustration constantly. Or you can just use the two Copic blacks as your light black and your dark black without the grays. Here's how it looks, just the two of them. Now I'm gonna bring out the big guns. This is Chartpak Super Black, and it is super black. Look at that, look at that. Prismacolor Jet Black, no contest. I mean, look at that. Whoo! Hi. Super black is super. Always make sure that you're looking at the color after your marker has dried. I love Chartpak brand because they smell. They've got that awesome like marker stink, you know, but I'm kind of weird. I also love the smell of gas stations and cigars. Anyway, so this is Chartpak Super Black. And, you know, I really love Chartpaks. They perform super well, and they're not really on the expensive end for markers. I am going to be doing a marker roundup video as my next visual playlist on Whatever I Want Wednesday coming up in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. But in the meanwhile, yeah, go check out Chartpaks. They are underrated, I think. So now I'm testing out a Sharpie. Sometimes I use a Sharpie because it's black and it's very black, as you can see. Again, just kind of making that jet black look not very jet at all. Now, I have quite a few markers. Of course, I don't have every marker under the sun, not every black marker, but this is the blackest marker I have ever seen. This is the Faber-Castell PITT Artist Pen Big Brush Pigment Marker in black 199. And it is black, y'all. Seriously black. Look at that. I mean, hold on a second. We have to let it dry first before we really see the color. But do you see how like all like the other blacks, like this whole row is, they're all labeled black, but they just look like wimpy little 50% grays in comparison to the Faber-Castell black. Look at that. Okay, see, now it's dry and you can really see how black it is. And that's the most intense black. Look at that. This is layered on top of the Copic special black. Sorry, Copic, your black is not all that special. And here's the Faber-Castell black compared to the Sharpie, and yeah, look at that. I mean, there you can see a bit of a tone difference, but yeah, that Faber-Castell, it's so black it has no tone. It's just black. Now, at this point, you may be thinking, Zoe, I'm not going to be using any of those dark grays. I'm just going to go with the blacks that you showed me, since you showed me several shades of black. All right, let me talk about the flip side of that for a second. Number one, remember this video is overexposed to show you more clearly the differences. So remember, these grays are going to look darker in person without crazy blasting studio lights, okay? Number two, using dark blacks or light blacks and the blacks and whatnot are fine if you don't need to put down a lot of design details and textures on top. But if you want to do that, you are going to want to use another black medium to draw and illustrate textures and design details on top. And so it's better to use these darkest grays so that when you use a black fine liner or black color pencil to put in these details, those details show up, you know, depending on the look that I'm going for. Okay, if I want to really blast out some design details, I will outline things in white. If I want a more subtle look, or for textures, I will use black on top of a super dark gray. I use fine liners from Copic, Staedtler, Prismacolor, and the Sakura Microns, which seem to be the industry standard, although I don't find them any better or worse than the other brands I mentioned. And then if you watch my first visual playlist, then you know that these Color Masters, I use them as fine liners. And you can use brush pens to put in textures and details, or draw patterns or prints on top of the dark grays. I use black fine liners to draw in design details like these pockets that I'm doing right now, and top stitching. Again, if I want the more subtle look. Sometimes I want everything to pop and be super clear, so I'll use a white instead. And I will demo that in a future video in this series. I'm going to go over a few of the black pencils that I use. If I want a fuzzy texture, I will take a black color pencil or charcoal pencil and illustrate those textures on a lighter black. Like this one is almost too dark for the fuzziness to show up. Again, it's really about matching your fabric and the look you're going for. Maybe you want something lighter like the Prismacolor Warm Gray 90 as your background to put soft mohair, boucle, cashmere textures on top with the charcoal pencil, like I'm showing you right now. Now, when you put the black charcoal pencil on top of the shadow color blacks, the darkest blacks, yeah, they're not going to show up that much, but it's fine. Most details and textures show up less in shadow garments in general anyway. I mean, unless you have really light color garments, you know, even in a blue garment, You're going to see less detail, less texture, you know, in the armpits, under shadow areas, things like that. There are some varieties of values and tones in color pencils as well. But you know, with color pencils, values can be determined more by how hard you press. And if you use blenders like blender pencils or the alcohol, rubbing alcohol, or baby oil, those tricks I went over in the shading with color pencils video. This is the Koh-i-noor Woodless pencil. I really like it. It's a very firm pencil and it makes for doing delicate details pretty nice. This is Prismacolor Black, and longtime viewers know how I feel about Prismacolors already. The colors are nice. They blend beautifully. Their leads are soft and snap even if you think about sharpening them. I have a few viewers who have been recommending the same color pencil sharpener to me, and they say it works like a dream on Prismacolor. So I'm about to get that because those Prismacolors are no joke. And then this is the Faber-Castell Polychromos in black, and you know, they are just a high quality color pencil in general. Now I'm just putting the little blender on these so you guys can see how that effect looks. The Koh-i-noor is a lighter black. Okay? Again, really great for the detail work because it really keeps a point. The Prismacolor black is quite black with a more bluish undertone, and because it's so creamy, it reacts to that blender really quickly. And then the Polychromos has a more neutral tone to it. So depending on what you're going for. I also like to use charcoal pencils for some detail works. I don't use full-on charcoal because, oh, the powder, it flies everywhere. Charcoal pencils are much cleaner and neater and not as much kick up. The Faber-Castell charcoal is the cleanest. The generals I have in several lead weights. See the difference between the 2B and the 6B. The 6B, of course, is softer and darker, just like with pencil leads. You know, the 6B is really soft and dark, and the 2B is still soft, but not as soft and dark as the 6B. Okay. So there you have it. Look at all of these markers and color pencils and charcoal pencil options for you to get started on illustrating your black textures. Look at this chart. Isn't it hilarious? Like those Prismacolor warm grays, 90%, they look so light in comparison to all the blacks that I showed you. And now that everything is dry, look at that bottom bar. You can really see how dark that Faber-Castell black is. Look at all those shades of black, right? As this series continues, I'm going to go over other media and then start doing some small sample illustrations of different textures you can create using the media I introduced in this series. But as a starter video, I hope this was helpful to help you figure out what markers and color pencils you should buy to get started on your black illustrations. If you found this video helpful, please hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't already so that you can get a notification for when I continue this series. Share this video with anyone who loves designing with and wearing as much black as I do. My students in class really freak out when I wear something that's not black. They're like, "What are you doing, Zoe? What's going on? I don't understand." Cracks me up every time. All right, you know the drill. # always be practicing, and I will see y'all in the next video.